Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Sip and Talk.
Hey, Joe.
Okay, so remember the other day, Sunny, on Sip and Talk, we were messing around with that toy filter, the one that gives you the bobblehead look.
Yeah.
It was so funny.
Oh, it's adorable. I thought we should totally sell those, make it a real thing.
Right, but it got me thinking, why are we so drawn to toys?
Yeah.
It's a pretty universal human thing, wouldn't you say?
Totally. It is. That's what we're going to be diving deep into today. You've gathered some really cool site for us, articles, websites.
Oh, yeah.
All looking at this fascination with toys from different angles.
Yeah.
We're going to be touching on psychology, what's popular around the world, and even the economic side of toys, why they're such a big deal,
Exactly. We've got some stuff about how little kids learn to share.
Yeah.
Why everyone's obsessed with anime figures.
Right.
And even what actually makes a toy good? What makes it a high quality toy?
Mm-hmm.
So basically today's mission is to figure out why do we humans at any age really get so into this thing we call toys?
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of it really does start in childhood though, doesn't it?
Totally.
One of the most interesting things I saw on the materials was this idea that for really little kids, toddlers around 2, 3.
Yeah.
Sharing toys isn't something that comes naturally, They're going through what they call self-centered period. It's everything is mine.
Now tell me about it. My niece, 2 years old.
Oh, yeah.
You take a block away from her. It is like you have started World War III.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like the end of the world.
Yep. And I think the articles really stress that for them, that feeling of ownership.
Yeah.
It's so central. And sharing, for them, it can actually feel like a loss. They're losing something super important.
Right. Literally their world is ending, taking their toy.
Exactly. And so what they really emphasize in these sources is that learning to share, learning to, hey, as they call it, really a skill they have to learn. It's not something they're just born knowing how to do.
So, they're not trying to be little terrors?
No.
Their brain just literally hasn't, gotten to the sharing is caring.
It's developmentally, they're not there yet.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important to kind of model that for them.
Yeah.
Shania talks a lot about how, older siblings and adults
Yeah.
at home really need to show them how it's done, how to share, how to be friendly, how to take turns. Kids, they just absorb everything we do.
Right. I'm thinking they're watching, mommy gives the dog a treat.
Right.
And then daddy gets a treat.
Yeah.
Maybe this is how the world works, but with toys instead of biscuits.
Yeah.
Dog biscuits, yeah.
And they talk about, kind of these everyday teachable moments, but with other kids. So, waiting in line for the slide at the playground.
Yeah.
Or they even suggest having, these little toy sharing parties.
Yeah. To kind of demonstrate that sharing is beneficial leads to getting to play with more stuff.
Yeah. It's you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, but for little kids. And parents can play a really big role in this, by telling stories about sharing or reading picture books. The goal isn't to force it on them,
right? But
to make it a positive experience. And then, after they've played together, maybe encouraging them to talk about how it went. Did they have fun?
Yep.
Was it more fun than arguing over the toy truck? And as the sources say, doing this over and over again is really key for their development.
So it's a whole team effort, right? You got to show them, give them chances to practice, and make it feel good.
Exactly. Make it a positive experience.
Got it. Okay. Switching gears a little bit, the Dami website went really deep into why play and toys are so crucial for little kids' brains.
Yeah.
Actual brain development.
Yeah. They make this really strong point that play isn't just about keeping kids busy,
Right.
It's actually a central part of their lives and a main way that they explore the world around them.
Right.
Which is super important for cognitive development, how they think and learn.
Right. Okay. So unpack this whole exploration and cognition link for me.
Okay, so the research they talk about suggests that babies who interact with a wider variety of objects actually explore in a much more sophisticated way, They're more likely to try different ways to play with one thing or even combine different things in their play. So it's not just about having a ton of toys.
Right.
It's about how they engage with them in a very kind of complex way. So think of a baby who you know, they bang a block.
Yeah.
Then they try to put it in their mouth. Yeah. Then they drop it. Like that's actively exploring that object.
Right. So like a simple set of blocks that can be stacked, knocked down, used as pretend food, whatever.
Right.
It could be more brain boosting than like a bunch of fancy gadgets that just do one thing.
Exactly. And it's not just the toys themselves. The caregivers, the adults who are like paying attention and responding to the baby's play.
Yeah.
That makes a huge difference. Like when an adult interacts with them during playtime, it encourages them to explore more and in better, more sophisticated ways.
Right.
And what's really fascinating is that the quality of that early exploration.
Yeah.
Like how long they stick with something, how complex their play is.
Yeah.
It's been linked to how persistent they will be later in life.
Whoa. So like me banging on a little toy drum when I was 2 is somehow helping me stick with like difficult problems as an adult.
That's the idea. That those early explorations are like building blocks for those like later life skills.
Yeah, yeah.
And giving them new things to explore or like little challenges that aren't too difficult can really keep their brains working and developing those cognitive skills.
No, I've seen so many times little kids going from one toy to the next.
Oh, yeah.
Like in 2 seconds flat.
Laughs.
Didn't the Kid Pro website talk about this? Like attention span?
Yeah, yeah. They said that like a typical 2-year-old might only be able to focus on one thing for like 6 minutes at a time.
6 minutes?
On their own, yeah. And even less for younger kids.
Okay, that explains so much. You give them a cool new toy, you blink, and they're already like trying to climb the bookshelf.
Exactly. But Kid Pro also made a good point, which is that when adults get involved in their play, it can actually help them focus for longer. You know? So like you're showing them different ways to play with the same toy.
Right.
You're kind of extending that interest. Like think about a puzzle.
Yeah.
First, they just try to like jam the pieces in.
Right.
But then you show them, oh, look how these shapes fit together.
Yeah, yeah.
Suddenly they're engaged for like another 5 minutes.
You're like building on their initial curiosity.
Exactly.
And like showing them the hidden possibilities within like that one toy.
The unlocking levels.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that active involvement from parents is like so crucial, you know?
Yeah.
Both for the learning and just like developing that attention span in those early years.
Yeah. Okay, I remember though people saying like if you have too many toys out, it's distracting for a little kid. Like put some away just to help them focus.
Yeah.
What did Kid Pro say about that?
Well, they were saying that young kids actually have a pretty narrow field of attention.
Okay.
And they literally won't even miss what they don't see. So hiding toys might not really improve their focus.
Right.
And it could even like reduce how much they explore on their own.
Right.
Because those toys just aren't even on their radar.
Right. Out of sight, out of mind.
Totally.
Especially for the really little ones.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about like the really young kids. What about the benefits of toys as they get older?
Well, the Yisalunjar article brought up this idea that even as kids get older, toys are still really important for them.
Yeah.
They're like really important for developing creativity, getting better at language, improving social skills, and even like becoming better at problem solving.
Okay, like give me some concrete examples.
Okay, so like...
Because I can see how like dress-up clothes could like boost imagination or like playing house helps with social skills.
Absolutely. And they specifically mentioned Legos, which I thought was really interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
As a great example of something that helps with like logical thinking and spatial reasoning.
My niece is obsessed with Legos. I just thought she was like having fun.
Yeah.
But it's cool to know it's actually like good for her brain.
Right. And it's not just for kids.
Right.
This article talked about how like for adults, collecting things like figures or dolls, it can actually create like an emotional connection to characters or even like remind them of their childhood.
Okay.
They even call them psychological projection containers, which is like a fancy way of saying they can help us like deal with stress.
Wow.
And even feel more connected to who we are.
Okay, that's an interesting way to look at it. Because I know a few people who have like shelves and shelves of collectibles.
Right.
And I just assume they're just like fun things to look at.
Yeah.
But maybe it's like more of an emotional connection than I realized. Kind of highlights how toys and playing are crucial for a child developing a sense of self and like feeling a sense of accomplishment. Pretend play.
Yeah.
Lets them act out their feelings and like things that happen in their daily life. And they can even like achieve things in their pretend world that they can't do in real life yet.
So when a kid is pretending to be like a firefighter putting out a fire, they're not just like having fun. They're also exploring these ideas of bravery and competence.
Exactly.
You know, stuff like that.
In the Citra Echo article, they added that it's really helpful when parents kind of understand and even talk about what their kids are doing during play.
Okay.
You know, like connecting those actions with words.
So like if a little kid is having their stuffed animals have a tea party, the parent could say something like, oh, look, the teddy bear is pouring tea for the bunny rabbit.
Exactly. Yeah. Just kind of narrating and reinforcing what they're doing.
Right. Okay.
And that same article also talked about how toys help kids develop their imagination and start thinking in more abstract ways.
Right.
This happens around like the age of 2.
Okay.
That's when like pretend play really takes off and they start to understand that like one thing can represent another.
Yeah.
You know, like a banana can be a phone.
Oh, yeah.
And they'll often act out things they see adults doing, like, you know, cooking dinner or talking on the phone.
Right.
So that's when like a cardboard box can become anything.
Right. A race car, spaceship.
Yeah. Their imagination like goes wild.
Yeah.
And then even going younger, the Ostun piece talked about how toys are so important for sensory development from birth, actually, through what they call the sensorimotor stage, which is basically that first couple of years where babies are learning through their senses and through their actions.
Yeah.
And like different parts of the toy.
Right.
The colors, the textures, the sounds, even like indirectly the smells. All these things help stimulate their 5 senses.
So it's not just about like distracting them with, you know, the bright, noisy rattle.
Right.
It's actually helping their brains and bodies develop.
Exactly. Yeah. They're experiencing different sights, different feels, sounds, and even, like I said, indirectly smells by like linking certain smells to certain objects.
Right.
It's all part of how they learn about the world.
So like even a ball with different textures on it.
Right.
It's helping them understand like different sensations.
Exactly. And then finally, the Youytube article, they brought up this kind of like philosophical idea that play allows children to become fully human, like to really experience freedom.
Okay.
As their ability to think rationally develops.
Okay.
And they made a great point, which is that play isn't just for kids.
Right.
It's something we all need. Like it's a psychological need for adults.
Right.
Just as much as it is for children.
I love that. It's not something you like grow out of.
Yeah.
It's a part of being human.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about like the psychology of why we love toys.
Yeah.
Now let's switch gears and talk about what toys are actually popular around the world.
All right. This is where it gets really interesting. Looking at global trends.
Yeah.
And what's like hot in the toy world right now.
Yeah.
The sources. And to do Shuin, they both give us a really great picture.
Okay.
Let's start with Japanese anime figures. Okay.
All right. Yeah.
Their popularity, I think, is driven by a few key things.
Yeah.
One, they are amazingly well made, incredibly detailed.
They look just like the characters.
Exactly. And of course, we can't ignore like the global influence of anime culture is huge.
Right.
It's massive.
Like huge. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like anime is everywhere.
Everywhere. For fans collecting these figures, it's a way to feel even more connected, you know, to those stories and those characters they love. And the demand for them, especially in places like the US and Europe, is really driving up their value. You know, these figures represent really strong IP, intellectual property.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of cultural meaning.
It's kind of like those Funko Pops for like Western comics.
Yeah.
And movies and stuff.
Yeah.
But maybe even more detailed.
Yeah. And even more.
And with a bigger cultural impact.
Yeah, for sure.
Were there any specific examples in those sources of like what figures are actually popular?
Yeah, they mentioned some like Gundam, Hatsune Miku, and Demon Slayer as being really popular. It's not just the figures themselves.
Right.
but the whole world.
Yeah.
The stories behind them.
Yeah.
That people are really connecting with.
Okay, what about like more classic toys?
Oh, yeah.
Or traditional toys?
Yeah.
What's big in the U.S.?
So in the U.S., you've always got Lego, Barbie.
Right.
And educational toys like science kits, right?
Right.
They're popular pretty much year after year.
Yeah.
And it's probably because there's this like focus on learning and classic play in the U.S.
Yeah.
And they also mention toys that have been around forever that have a huge cultural impact.
Yeah.
Like G.I. Joe and the Slinky.
The Slinky. Oh, my God. Like that simple spring
I know.
has been entertaining people for generations.
Yeah.
You don't need, like, batteries.
Nope.
You don't need a screen.
Yep.
Just gravity.
Exactly.
Okay, what about globally?
So globally, Lego is still massive, like huge search volume online. Yeah. Video game consoles, of course,
Right.
like the Nintendo Switch, are super popular.
Yeah.
And then you've got traditional games like Ludo, which is like loved in so many different countries.
Ludo. I haven't even thought about that game in, like, ages.
I know.
It's so simple. You're just rolling dice
Yes.
and moving pieces.
Yeah.
But it gets so competitive.
It does. It's so fun.
It really does. It just goes to show you, like, you don't need all the fancy
don't.
bells and whistles
Nope.
to, like, actually have fun.
No, you really don't. And it's actually really cool to see, like, the cultural significance of traditional toys in different parts of the world.
Right.
The sources mention, like, wire toys in Kenya.
Oh, wow.
And clay toys in India.
Okay.
And they're so creative, you know, and so different from, like, the mass-produced, industrialized toys we often see in the West.
Right. Like almost like folk art or something.
Yeah. And China's Tangram puzzle.
Right.
Another great example. The traditional toy that's, like, popular all over.
It's almost like these toys tell you a story about where they're from.
Yeah.
What materials people had access to.
Right.
And how different cultures, like, figured out ways to play and be entertained. Centuries.
Exactly.
It's really cool.
It is. And the Muidon article gave us a little wider look at figures popular around the world.
Yeah.
Mentioning, like, Figma and Nendoroid from Japan.
Okay.
Playmobil and Brio from Europe.
Okay.
And, like, the more recent popularity of, like, Pop Mart and Sunny Angel.
Right.
From China.
It's a whole
yeah.
world of toys out there.
It is.
Beyond just, like, what we see
totally
in our local toy store.
Yeah.
Okay, so all of this popularity and, you know, all these different toys.
Yeah.
This must mean, like, the toy industry is a pretty big business, right?
Oh, yeah. It is massive.
Yeah. Like, how big are we talking?
Both the Sourcey Sources and the Susun article, they said it was over $110 billion globally.
Wow.
In 2023.
110 billion.
Yeah. Huge.
That is mind-blowing.
Yeah. And it affects everything, you know, from, like, the factories where they're made.
Right.
To the stores where we buy them.
Okay, so you've got these huge companies.
Oh, yeah.
Like Bandai, Disney, Lego, Funko.
All the big names.
Yeah. And they're not just, like, driving creativity. They're also contributing to, like, actual economies.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
Through exports.
Big time.
Yeah. Those are the names you see everywhere.
Yeah.
And they're definitely shaping, like, what it means to be a kid for so many people.
Totally. And those popular toys like Lego and Barbie, you know, they're not just selling toys, they're actually, like, creating cultural trends. Right. They influence, like, what kids want and even how they play.
And then we talked about earlier how those anime figures, their value just keeps going up.
Oh, yeah.
Because of, like, global demand.
Absolutely.
So it's not just about, like, buying them in the store.
No.
There's a whole, like, collector's market.
Exactly.
And secondhand market that adds to this whole economic impact.
And there are companies like Kotobukiya and Good Smile Company and Bandai. They're really catering to those collectors with their, like, high-quality figures.
Right.
Really detailed, you know?
Yeah.
And the sources even mention, like, how limited edition figures from places like Bear Brick and Medicom and Hot Toys can actually become, like, investments.
What?
Yeah. It can be really valuable.
Like a whole stock market of toys. Okay, that's so interesting. Okay, so we know why we play with toys, like, psychologically.
Yeah.
And we see what's popular around the world. and like how much money's involved.
Yeah.
What about when we're actually picking out toys?
Okay.
Like what should we be thinking about?
This is like really important stuff for parents and like anyone buying gifts for kids, you know?
Right.
The EC Susian articles, they give some really great practical advice.
Okay.
And like number one, across the board is safety.
Right. You don't want anything that a little kid choke on.
Exactly.
Or that has like sharp edges or anything.
No sharp edges, no small parts.
Right.
Especially with those little ones.
Especially
who put everything in their mouths.
Babies. Grimaces.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the sources recommend keeping a close eye on young children when they're playing and choosing toys like carefully. You know, like making sure they're hard to break, made with non-toxic materials.
Right.
And that they're the right size for the child.
Yeah. Okay, so safety first.
Yeah.
And then hopefully fun.
Fun, yes.
Can you get both in one toy?
I think so.
Let's hope.
You know, after our talk about kids and their toys, it got me thinking about something kind of similar. All those figures people collect.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It seems different from just regular toys, right? Like they don't really play with them the same way.
Right. It's more about appreciating them, displaying them.
Exactly.
It's a really interesting part of human nature, isn't it?
You look at someone's collection of anime characters, for example, and you can tell they mean a lot more to them than just plastic. What's going on there?
Well, figures can be super powerful reminders of our past. You know, like think about a figure from a TV show you loved as a kid.
Oh, yeah, totally.
It instantly takes you back to those feelings, those memories. It's tangible. And for fans of specific things like anime, it's even more than that.
How so?
Those figures become a way for them to show their identity, their passion. It's like saying, this story, these characters, they're part of who I am.
That makes a lot of sense. It's almost like a piece of their personality made real, standing right there on the shelf.
Exactly.
And when you look at things like Japanese anime figures, those shoban, there's a whole other layer of appreciation there, right? Like a cultural thing.
Absolutely. Those figures, especially the Japanese ones, they're often seen as works of art. I mean, the detail, the quality, it's incredible.
It really is.
So collecting them becomes a way to connect with that whole otaku culture.
Yeah.
You know, people who are really passionate about anime, manga, that kind of thing.
Right.
It's about appreciating that specific style, that unique world.
I get it. It's the art and the cultural connection. But let's talk about the money. Some of these figures, especially those limited edition ones, they can be worth a lot, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. The financial side of things is definitely a part of it for some people. You know, limited editions, first releases of figures tied to big events, those can become really valuable over time.
Because they're rare.
Exactly. Scarcity and demand, you know. And certain Japanese anime figures, they've actually become like investments for some collectors.
Wow, that's interesting. To think of your collection as an investment. But it's not all about the money, is it? I mean, I've seen how these collections can bring people together.
You're absolutely right. Collecting figures can be a super social thing. People bond over their shared interests, you know.
Like going to conventions and things.
Totally. Going to conventions, showing off their collections, talking about them online. It creates a real sense of community.
That's cool.
And even just displaying your figures at home, that's a way to express yourself, to show people what you're into, and maybe even spark a conversation. It's a way to connect with people who get it, who share your passion.
So it's like this amazing mix. Personal connection, cultural appreciation, a potential way to make some money, and a way to meet awesome people. It's way more than just having a bunch of little statues on your shelf.
Exactly. It's about so much more.
Can you give us an example that kind of brings all those elements together?
Sure. Let's take a Luffy figure from One Piece, for example.
Okay. Everyone knows Luffy.
For a One Piece fan, that figure represents Luffy's courage, his friendship, all those things they admire about the character.
Yeah, the character's values.
Right. Plus, if it's a limited edition Luffy, it could be worth a lot of money someday.
True.
Or think about those models of Roman soldiers.
Oh, yeah.
For someone who's into history, those are more than just toys. They're like little windows to the past.
And a way to learn something, too.
Exactly. And then you have something like a Darth Vader figure. It taps into that love people have for Star Wars, for those classic movies. Plus, Star Wars is always popular, so a Darth Vader figure will probably always be in demand.
It's amazing to think how much meaning can be packed into something that might seem so simple.
Yeah, they're more than just figures. They're little pieces of stories, memories, and values.
Exactly.
Whether people collect for the nostalgia, for the art, or for the potential financial gain, there's something really special about it. It's a whole world unto itself.
It really is. And speaking of passion projects, our friend Mickey has this awesome YouTube channel called Mickytolife.
Oh, yeah, Mickey.
He does these really cool travel vlogs, and he always throws in these whiskey and other alcohol unboxings with this really cool music in the background.
I've seen them. They're great.
We mention it every time because we're huge fans. Check out Mickytolife on YouTube.
Definitely worth a watch. And, it makes you think. What seemingly ordinary things in your life might actually have a deeper meaning, a story behind them, maybe something you haven't even discovered yet.
That's a great thought to leave everyone with. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.